can I ask how the pushbacks in the Channel are going?
You're referring to the new maritime tactic which Border Force Maritime have been preparing and trialling, and they have not been deployed yet.
When are they going to start?
When all of the circumstances are in place to allow them to be deployed in a safe and legal way.
What circumstances are they?
They are multiple, including weather, type of boat, and many other factors.
Well, can you give us some more detail? I mean, are we going to see them in the next week, in the next month, the next year, ever?
When we see them will depend on lots of different factors, so I cannot give a yes/no answer to that question.
Okay, but a little bit of detail would be helpful. The Home Secretary made a big play of this announcement a few weeks ago. It was met with some question marks about, one, its legality, two, its practical effectiveness. And you've said it depends on a whole load of circumstances. That's added absolutely no detail at all. So is this actually going to happen?
It will happen if it can be done in a safe... It will only happen if it can be done in a safe and legal way. And that shouldn't need saying, but just for the absolute avoidance of doubt, I want to say it and be very clear about it. In addition to that, it also requires decision makers to decide that it is available to be deployed if the circumstances are met. And then it requires the Border Force commanders to make judgments in the moment about whether the specific circumstances of a particular vessel in particular weather conditions, in particular part of the channel, in particular relation to other vessels, whether they're British or French, and so on. And that is why it is hard to give a definitive answer.
So by the time all these multiple particulars have been decided, presumably the dinghy will have made it onto the beaches of Kent or Sussex at that stage. Are you saying that you have not yet ascertained whether this policy is legal?
No, I'm not saying that.
So is this policy legal?
There is a legal base for this policy in certain circumstances, yes. And it is only in those circumstances that we would even consider deploying it, and we will consider it in those circumstances.
What are those circumstances?
What I've just set out.
What are the legal circumstances? You haven't set out the legal circumstances.
What's the legal basis?
The legal basis is the advice from the law officers, which there is a convention that I must not disclose it, but I assure
must not disclose it.
I must not disclose the advice of the law officers to the government.
No, but you can refer to the international maritime legal basis on which they think it would be legal for you to have pushbacks.
Absolutely,
right.
And they have identified a legal base on the basis of international and domestic law that in certain circumstances it will be legal, and
okay. And what's that?
Could I possibly add a couple of reflections just from a purely operational perspective?
Well, I don't want reflections.
But I want,
is this going to be legal or not? Because if it's not going to be legal, and you've not had robust advice that's not legal, that it's legal or not, then any amount of are the weather conditions right, is it safety, have they been trained properly, are completely academic. Unless you are going to operate this policy in a way which you know is actually not legal.
There is a legal basis to operate this policy in certain circumstances, and the legality depends on the circumstances.
Okay, so what are those circumstances?
So is that was the point. Sorry for interrupting, but that was exactly the point that I was going to make, which is, while I kind of understand the frustration in the question, what we have is a set of operational protocols which are intended to manage and incentivise the behaviour of illegal behaviour. And I'm not sure it would. So it's the point I'm trying to make very clumsily is if we were to sit in front of this committee and set out in detail precisely the operational parameters which would drive the use of these tactics, that would be a perverse thing for us to do, because sharing the precise set of operational standards that the Permanent Secretary has referred to would be a level of information which could shape the behaviour of people who are thinking about trying to cross the channel, and that's the last thing that we would want to do.
But if you bring this into operation and a boat sinks as a result, you'll be in front of this committee and numerous other committees having to explain exactly that. I'm purely after... I think I know the legal basis on which you can operate this, and actually we've had evidence in front of this committee. What I don't know is whether you know what that legal basis is, and nothing I've heard so far suggests that you do actually know whether this is legal or not. So any nonsense about whether it's practical on a certain day, if it's sunny enough, it's raining or whatever, is completely irrelevant, because you don't seem to know yet whether it actually is legal. And if you're saying it is legal in certain circumstances, theoretically you should be able to tell us those circumstances.
I'm sorry, Mr Loughton, but that is not a fair characterisation of what the Second Permanent Secretary or I said. What I said is that the legality depends on the circumstances. There is a legal base for this to be used in certain circumstances, and we are not going to say any more than that for the reasons the Second Permanent Secretary said about what more those circumstances are beyond what I've already said about weather, location of vessels and so on. But there is a legal base, and it will only be used on that legal basis.